myself Alan and not by my Hebrew name. This is the reverse of the whole, and this country, this setting, enables you to do this, especially blessed New York. Now, Ali Mirza Parsi's point about the question of moral politics is absolutely correct and to the point. Now, let me say something about the point that Farzin Rahtad raised about the, as we call it, post-colonial here, post-colonial, postmodern. This is a massive intellectual movement here in this country. And as Farzin mentioned, I don't stay clear or try to strike a balance by virtue of some sort of intellectual theoretical balance. It is by virtue of following, in fact, Gramsci's motto of making an inventory of who and where you are. And Mirza Parsi's point of sort of locating me in the context of an intellectual tradition that he mentioned. I have always tried to be conscious, and if there is any theorization, it is a theorization of self, as Gramsci mentioned. Now, this takes me to the question of third world intellectual and cosmopolitan intellectual. Now, my take on that, as you know, the question of cosmopolitan intellectual, or cosmopolitanism, is a hotly contested issue. You have people like Sheila bin Habib, who has provided exquisite analytic from a philosophical point of view, that there is new citizenship, this is the new Europe, and we have to come up with a new cosmopolitanism. Then you have people like Appiah, Anthony Appiah, who in effect says ideals of enlightenment are universal, get it over with, and we should all acclimate to them. There is a fantastic critique of this, as well, you know, by Timothy Brennan. Timothy Brennan says, sorry, this cosmopolitanism business is really Americanism, is deleting, obliterating cultures and sites of resistance in nationalist or regional terms. My response to Timothy Brennan is that Timothy Brennan can only think of Americanism as the only kind of cosmopolitanism. Whereas my task has been over the decades, in fact, to argue for existence, factual, historical, material, theoretical presence of different worlds. This I take, and I'd like to share this I take from Gramsci's critique of Kant. There is a point in the prison notebooks, fantastic point, in which Gramsci asks, you have to imagine him sitting in the dungeons of Mussolini. He's reading Immanuel Kant's Groundings for the Metaphysics of Morals. And he asks, how is it that a German philosopher can say that act in a way that your behavior becomes the standard of moral behavior forever? How could a German philosopher say something like that? Can I, as an Italian, say the same thing? It's just an ingenious moment with which I identify. His discovery, Gramsci's response, is that Kant can say that because his world has received self-consciousness, globalized, universalized self-consciousness. And I, Gramsci says, as a mezzogiorno southern Italian, I have not reached that audacity, that courage, that imagination to say, my world, I will act in a way that my behavior becomes universal. My take on this Gramscian insight on Kant is that I look at people, explaining what it means to be cosmopolitan. I look at people like Jose Marti, Our America, when he writes Our America. I look at Americo Castro, when he writes The Spaniards. I look at Spivak when he writes but other Asias. There are multiple registers of people who have tried to craft a worldliness, a rooted worldliness that transcends the colonial and anti-colonial, imperial and anti-imperial, and retrieves a world that existed. In my current work, what I'm doing, I look at, for example, historically, the Samanid period, or the Ghaznanid period, or the Seljuqid period, or the Mongol period, or the Safavid period, or the Mughal period, and I look at people. I look at, a poet like Bidal in the Mughal period. Did he think of himself as an Indian poet? He didn't think of himself. He thought of himself as a poet. In abstraction, in generality, in totality. As we say in my department, only in New York you eat Chinese food. In China, you don't eat Chinese food, you eat food. Only in New York you eat Indian food. In India, people don't eat Indian food, they just eat food. Namely, from food to ideas to... It's abstract. It is only when you drag other worlds into the contemporary cosmopolitanism that they become foreign. You follow? Because they don't hear their own foreignness. You see the signs around our campus, get rid of your accent? Okay, because they don't hear their own accents. You get in a cab and somebody tells you, I detect a little bit of accent. So yeah, and so do I. Okay, but they don't hear that accent. It is that retrieval of alternative worlds, whether historical worlds that have existed but have been glossed over, and this is not evil that the West has done. When the Safavids came to power, they glossed over the Timurid world. When the Timurids came to power, they glossed over the Mongols. The Mongols glossed over the Seljuqs. It's the nature of empires, that they think they are the only thing that they ever existed. So, my current understanding of what happens from early 19th century forward, not only in Iran, in the Arab world, India, etc., you have poets, literati, intellectuals, etc., they come out of the court, because royal court was the natural habitat of poets, literati, historians. That's what they were. Okay? Until the rise of European imperialism, that poets, Persian poets composing Persian poetry in Mughal court, in Safavid court, in the Safavid painters were more important than poets. In the Ottoman court, ultimately three major simultaneous Muslim empires, the Mughals, the Safavids, and the Ottomans, the leading intellectuals, etc., they exit the court. They come out and they define the public space. There is a fantastic statement by Arif Qazvini, the poet of the constitutional period, in which he says, we have the quotation in the IHO, before my poetry, 1 out of 10 Iranians didn't know what even the word vatan meant. Homeland. He's right. Because he invented it. The word vatan, homeland, is the space, is the public space that the poet who has just exited. The trace of this exiting goes back to, for example, Tahir Oratul, a revolutionary poet who's no longer at the court. Comes to the public space, defines the public space, and begins to compose poetry, etc. Now, one reason for the necessity of this public space is that the Persian poet, or the Arab poet, has exited the royal court and has no room in this royal court. This royal court is territorial, is in Paris and in London and so forth, has no room in it. Because if you move, for example, from the Timurid to the Mughals, okay, the poet moves from the Timurid court to the Mughal court, or to the Safavid court, or the Safavid court. They don't like poets, well, they go to the Mughal court, or to the Safavid. So the poet's A definition is within the